Hello Sharks, and welcome to today's video. First and foremost, happy FNaF 10th anniversary. I am so excited to see one of my favorite fandoms hit such a milestone. For me and many others, FNaF is such a big thing in my life. It was one of the things that pushed me to start drawing and creating original characters, and now, because of the loving push of the internet, I love drawing. I love drawing, I love art, I love writing, I love making stories and worlds for my OCs, and I love sharing my art with other people. And that's what I'm going to do today. I thought, what better way to celebrate the 10th anniversary of this fandom than by making designs of the main four as humans. Now, I've actually made designs of the main four as humans before, but it was bad. Like, really bad. I don't have any sketchbooks with my original designs of them, but trust me, they were bad. I had the idea of making them children because they were possessed by children, but I'm pretty sure most of the animatronics are possessed by children or adults as well, so I'm making them all adults. Sorry. No free child labor. I wanted the designs to be more centered around the 80s because while FNaF 1 itself takes place in the 90s or 2000s, the pizzeria was at its prime in the 80s. I wanted these characters to really seem like they could actually be workers at a children's restaurant in the 80s. And, by the way, yes, I know that other people have different ideas of the same characters, but these are my interpretations. And interpretation is personal. Just so you know, I'm also designing the characters in the order in which they appear actively in the game. So that means Bonnie first, then Chica, then Foxy, then Freddy, because that's the way that they attack. Now, with that being said, let's start with Bonnie. So for Bonnie, I wanted to convey more of his fanon/canon personality of being like a cool guitarist through this design. I typically do this through expression and body language, even if it's just for a headshot. I use that method with all four of them too. I also wanted to make him look a little more rabbit-like in itself, because I am not going the route that I always have for the last 4 years of just adding rabbit or fox or bear ears on a headband to their design. Anyways, to follow that, I gave him ears that stuck out a little more to simulate those rabbit ears instead. I also gave him buck teeth, more commonly dubbed as American Girl doll teeth, because that's so adorable to me and it helped with the whole rabbit appearance. I sort of imagine his style is very reminiscent of 80s hair metal and rock, so I gave him a typical bowling shirt that I only realized midway through was an accidental nod to Bonnie having his own bowling alley in later games. I originally wanted his hair to be curly or frizzy because, 80s, but after looking at a few reference pictures and a picture of my mom from the 80s, I went for a flatter look. I also wanted him to have a diamond stud on his left ear, but I was not about to draw all that, so I literally just cut a picture of one out and cut it to size. I use a lot of detail and generally try to be realistic yet still cartoony in my own art style, and I find that works for me. For the coloring, I gave him a deeper skin tone and a bluish black hair to still have it be a little obvious that he's Bonnie without being, Bonnie. It is a little sad that most of the detail in his hair got lost in that bluish black color that I added, but I am still pretty happy with it, and I think it fits him quite nicely, actually. Also, I just noticed this while editing. Chica was the only drawing that I flipped the canvas for. I did not flip the canvas for any of the other drawings. I also originally made part of his shirt a bluish tone until I decided to switch it to a more purple tone, because while most iterations of Bonnie are blue, the original one is more purple. A tip for coloring digitally that I like to give is to not use a pure white for things in your drawings that would be white, like the scleras and the teeth. I like to put more realism in my drawings, so I use an off-white for those. If you want that pop though, go for it. My colors, when drawing digitally, are very desaturated as well, so just keep that in mind that an off-white knot might work for every style. I don't typically do a lot of blush on drawings, but I did for these four, and all four I used a blood brush that I found online. And for the eyes, I still wanted to keep them a little bit red, but I didn't really know how to do that, so I just added a little bit of purple to blue because, and I kept his bow red, obviously. Now on to shading. The way that I do shading digitally and traditionally, I don't really focus on a certain light source. I kind of just do shading where I think there would be shading, and that might not be the best technique, but it works for me, and it looks good, in my opinion anyways. Here's where I started to do the finishing touches, like more shading, obviously, and ideas for a background. I struggled a lot with the background, actually, and you'll see how I actually made the background, too. It looks like I'm doing a whole lot of nothing, but I swear, Ibis is just weird, and it doesn't really show small details being added. Now, I never do hair highlights, and that literally carried on into all the rest of them, because that shine, only present on Bonnie. Literally only present on Bonnie. Now, since this was my first drawing that I did, I had no idea what to do for the background, so I messed around a lot with different layers and different opacities for different things. Like, I tried duplicating the drawing and adding that, but then eventually I settled on Bonnie in a filter. I think it's called Retro Game in Ibis Paint, and I messed around with some patterns, but it looked ugly until I found that one, and then I settled on something that I liked. It's really just a lot of trial and error to get something that you actually really like. Like, originally I thought that was fine, but then I started messing around a little bit more and tried out different things, and eventually I did end up with the background that is present in the final thing. Oh, and I also tried that outline. It didn't look that good, so I scrapped it. Then I forgot to do my other kind of shading, so I just did that real quick, and of course I put my watermark on and a couple more teensy-weensy finishing touches, and yeah, that was the drawing. I like it. That was Bonnie, and now it's time for Chica. I would say that Chica's design was my favorite of the video just because I loved the way that it turned out in general, and it was just so cute and so fun. I made her body a little thicker and struggled with that for a little bit because I typically don't draw plus size people, but I think she turned out really nice in the end. And of course, I had to give her her cupcake, except it's not alive. I probably should have made it alive, but I didn't. Something that I love to use when I'm drawing is the Liquify pen. That can really help you get the proportions that you want. I experimented with some eyelashes for her for a while, but after looking at it, I decided that it didn't look as good, so I tried to just shave them down, but that didn't work either, so I got rid of them altogether because I think that looks a lot better than her with eyelashes. Obviously, I had to give her a big ol' smile, but when I tell you that I also struggled with the teeth, I know it doesn't show it on Ibis because Ibis doesn't show, like, every single movement, but I struggled, and I struggled a lot. Sort of inspired by Glamrock Chica, I gave her a little bow with the 3 feathers coming out of her head, and I made it curly because I thought that was adorable. And I messed around with some bangs for a little while until I settled on this. I thought it was adorable. In general, I just wanted to make her look like happy and bright and cute and stuff like that. I gave her an apron instead of a bib, and I also gave her a collared shirt, which I added tiny little lace detailing into it. It was really fun to do, actually. This time, I actually remembered my first layer of shading, so I did that. Then I did another one, which is where I added the little lace detailing. You can just barely see me drawing it at the bottom by her collar there. Since I guess I was really dedicated to this Chica drawing, I added another layer of shading just in a slightly lower opacity. I settled on a slightly paler shade for her skin, and for me personally, when I do characters that are birds or have beaks, like say Duck Guy from DHMIS, I tend to put vitiligo around their mouths to simulate the beak, and yes, I actually do add orange lipstick later, but yeah. Another important thing to keep in mind when drawing characters digitally or traditionally is values. And values are basically what the colors look like when they're in grayscale. And so her hair, I had to mess around a bit to get the right value so that it didn't look like all one color in grayscale, because that can really mess with it. And since Chica is a girl boss, I decided to make her bow pretty pink and match her cupcake. You know, man, it's really the details that count. It's really the details that count. I think I originally overlined her lip a little bit, so I just softened that up, and I think I meant to give her more makeup, but I didn't. She's a natural queen. She doesn't care about makeup, okay? Only lipstick. Since I wasn't doing the let's eat bib that the lovely chica in the top left corner has, I opted for giving rainbow specks to her apron instead to make it look a little, fancier, and it looked a little ugly at first, so I messed with it until I got something that I liked. I think I gave her brown eyes, but I again put a rim of purple or a purplish pink around them to maybe look a little bit more similar to her original eye color, which is purple. I added some blush around her face and stuff like that, and finishing touches, obviously, until I moved on to the background, which was substantially easier than the last time. Since I already knew what I was going for, it was just a matter of messing around with opacities and colors until I actually got something that I was satisfied with, and I think it was nice. I added my watermark, and basically, that was it. That was Chica. Now,
I mean, just
look
at her. She's so
Foxy.
cute.
Obviously, the main thing that I wanted Foxy to be was a pirate. Okay, he's Foxy the pirate. I think in the end, this was my least favorite drawing out of them all, but I also think I kind of made him look like a generic, well, not generic, but an anime protagonist, and that isn't really what I wanted. I gave him a piercing on his left ear, because that's what pirates do. I debated on doing shape language for the drawings, which I didn't end up doing, but Foxy was definitely the one that I was leaning most towards shape language-esque. I made his ears really pointy, and I tried to make his features just relatively sharp and angular and have the motif of a triangle. I messed around with his eye patch for a bit, and the style that you're seeing right now did not end up staying because, one, it looked ugly in hindsight, and it didn't really make sense. I did give him more angular features like triangular eyes and really sharp eyebrows as well. For his hair, I was very inspired by, once again, hair metal of the 80s. It has hair in the name. Of course it's going to be extra. The style that I went for was very spiky and fluffed up because that's what suited it best. I did have the idea for a shorter, less extravagant look that I'd done in a previous design for Foxy, but the idea didn't end up sticking. Looking back on this now, I sort of think he looks like what most people thought Michael Afton looked like when he was like a teenager or something. No. But I guess it is a little fitting for Foxy to look like, at least a little bit, like a fanon version of Michael Afton. For his clothes, I originally wanted him to just have a red shirt, but I decided that I wanted him to have a vest over top of the red shirt to try and capture more of that pirate look that I was going for. I also meant to add pearl necklaces, but I forgot about that until the end. For the coloring, I kept his skin relatively light with a reddish undertone, and I made his hair a slightly redder ginger because bright red would blend into the other colors and also look ugly. For the vest and top, I did a slightly darker and lighter red to show at least a little bit of contrast between the two while still keeping the color palette I set out for myself, and also the color palette of Foxy himself, which is just red, basically. I feel like this was the one that I was least passionate about because I didn't have a lot of ideas for it besides the basic image that I had set in my head, and also I think I was feeling a little bit discouraged because mentally the face was just not it. It was not it. But I kept it anyways because it's way too late now. I think he looks a little bit like Howl from Howl's Moving Castle as well. Great movie, by the way. I don't remember if Howl gets red hair in that movie or not, but if he does, great, then I'm not just seeing things. I also gave him a gold tooth, but then I decided that one wasn't enough and I added another, even though it's a little out of place and a little bit wacky, but yeah. I did the shading just as I did with everybody else and added a little bit more dimension to his hair as well. I think the blush that I did on him I went a little bit more heavy on than the others, but hey. Looking back on it, I think when I was searching up reference photos, I meant to add facial hair to him because I did look up historical pirates and all of them had facial hair of some kind, whether it be just a mustache or a full-on beard. I probably should have given him a little bit of facial hair, but I didn't. Then I began messing around with the background, trying to find the right color and opacity of everything to make it look good and clean. The background that I ended up choosing, apart from just Foxy, was actually a really lucky find as well. I added my watermark, and then after that is when I remembered that I was going to do pearl necklaces for him, and so I actually just used the pearl brush and ibis paint to create the necklaces, and then I went around them with a black brush, and that was basically the necklaces, and in turn, Foxy. I said it before, but this was definitely my least favorite design of the group. It's not bad, it's just not what I would probably want it to be absolutely. And with that, let's move on to our last design, Freddy. Even though Freddy is the main event, I didn't really do much different from the rest of them, except making him facing forward versus facing a side angle like the others. I also made him a little chubbier because I thought that fit with the body type of the actual animatronic itself. And I tried to make his ears a little more round to look like bear ears a little bit. I didn't really do much special or visually compelling with his face that much, but I did mess around with his eyebrows a little bit because I wanted to give him a look like he was just staring at you menacingly. Never saying that again. Now, typically nowadays, when I'm drawing a Freddy design, I will give him a red vest because I think that looks amazing on him and slightly FNaF Plus inspired, but not really. But this time around, I just chose to give him a regular suit.
Once again, it looks like I'm doing a whole lot of nothing because I'm editing small details until I move on to the mouth, which is
wacky. I almost completely forgot that I started my first layer of shading until I added his moles instead of his freckles because they looked ugly. Sorry, but I probably should have tried a little bit harder with the freckle idea, but I didn't. But I still think the mole idea is really cute as well. I tried to make the top hat actually appropriate to the size of his head so that it wouldn't look terribly small on him. I once again struggled with the hair. Originally, I thought I would fall into the pattern of giving him like a drastic mullet because that's what every single design of humanoid Freddy that I've made in the past would be like. But after looking up a few reference images, I settled on, well, what I was drawing. Here, I was going back and editing maybe to make him look more directly at the viewer, but it didn't really work. So then I just went back to editing his hair and his top hat, and I surprisingly don't mind the hair, even though it looks goofy. I made the top hat a little more like an actual top hat on his head, and then into the coloring. This first skin color that I placed down, it doesn't stay. I knew that I wanted him to have a little bit of darker skin than the rest of them because, well, Freddy is literally... Just look at him, okay? I also opted for a brown suit, too, which was a little bit of a shock to myself as well because I thought that maybe a red suit would work, but I didn't because I wanted to keep more of the Freddy aspect into him instead of Fanon Freddy or FNaF Plus Freddy or whatever other version of Freddy there is out there with a red vest. I messed around with the off-white for his eyes and actually the color that I used for his button-up, I think, the button-up part of his suit, that's what I use for the main color of the teeth and the eyes later, which actually looks pretty good. While I was shading, since I was using very similar colors throughout this whole drawing, and also since my colors that I choose are very desaturated, it was a little bit difficult to find shading colors, but well, not that hard, honestly. I also gave him two-toned lips because I thought that would add a little bit more to the realism aspect of it. And actually, for the blush, since the brush that I was using does go on a little bit hard, I actually just put down the blush and then lowered the opacity of the layer. Then after a few more tweaks, I started working on his background. And since he was the main attraction, no puns intended, I knew that I wanted his background to really just make him pop. So I tried a few different layers with, like, his eyes really popping, and then having just Freddy, like the Freddy render in the background and stuff. I don't think I settled on that in the end, but yeah, I settled on this background. But also, here's the original background Freddy, and here's the normal background Freddy. I like them both. All in all, I am really happy with these designs, and I am so grateful that I get to be a part of this amazing celebration of possibly one of the greatest mascot horror games in existence as we know it right now. Also, I apologize for the quality of the audio or the quality of the video. I am new to video making, and also I do not have a super fancy microphone. I'm just using my phone microphone for this, so I apologize for the quality. But yeah, expect better quality in the future, maybe. But thank you, sharks, for listening to me and for watching this video, and above all, thank you, Scott. Good night.